Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. We are back with an amazing guest, inspirational guest that we have so many questions and comments for. Hello and welcome back, Genevieve. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Wendy. I'm great. Thank you.
Hey, you were talking about now you got me all teary-eyed as well on the podcast. Good thing we're not on video for my listeners to see, because I'm the strong type and I don't get emotional.
I get emotional all the time.
Good, you got it covered for me. When you were talking about the homeless shelter, I'm assuming it was a homeless shelter, I too got involved in a very unique way. And it was because of human resources, because as HR, we're often the ones that are, pulling together employee relations programs and doing volunteer work. And I kind of did something similar. I didn't end up on Oprah, not yet anyways. And I certainly didn't end up with the book that you have. But I did the same thing. I was like, I'm going to get my employees involved so we could all, kumbaya and get along better. And since that moment, the first time I ever volunteered at a homeless shelter, resolving homelessness and veterans is my main passion. And when you have children that are suffering through no fault of their own, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. So thank you so much for doing that, for jumping in. Talk to us a little bit more about your book, Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas, How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning.
Sure. And Wendy, great work that you do. I'm so glad to hear we have something in common like that. I wrote my book because little did I know there were a lot of people that I came and met through Growing Pajama Program, which is what I named my organization. And they wanted to know, sort of coyly, if I could talk to them about how I did it, because they too were thinking about following their heart. And many, many people like me had started one career for a lot of reasons that had nothing to do with listening to your heart voice, nothing to do with purpose or meaning, just because someone suggested it. They were looking for a good, secure job, money, responsibility. And they realized that I had thrown that away and found something that I loved. However, I was always honest and told them the downs as well as the ups that I went through. And I wasn't prepared financially. I wasn't prepared emotionally. And I wanted everyone to understand that. So I spoke about both ups and downs, whether it was on a stage, to a group, or individually when I was consulting or coaching someone. And I found that was really what they connected with me on, that I could be honest. And so I wanted to write the book because there's no better life than following your heart voice. And I thank God every day I did. But I wanted to be the cheerleader and support for somebody who understands or will understand that there are a lot of challenges and it's not easy. And especially if you're doing it midstream, like I did, like a lot of people who came to me would be doing it, that it's the most rewarding thing. But I want them to be prepared and also to know that I'm always here as a cheerleader if they want to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think JC has some stats for us to share about people changing careers.
Yeah, actually, in a world where the average person navigates through 5 to 7 career changes in their lifetime, and with about 30% of the workforce seeking new opportunities every year, it truly is vital to stay true to yourself and your aspirations, embracing honesty as a compass through the twists and turns of life.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, let's face it, we all at some point in our lives had to take a job that we weren't thrilled with, just to get a skill or get our foot in the door. And that's part of life too. And JC, that statistic there about 5 to 7 career changes in their lifetime, that's career changes. That's not jobs. I mean, how many people have 30, 40 jobs in their lifetime, especially the younger generation now, because they're piecing together part-time jobs or 1099 jobs even to come up with a full-time paycheck. But then on top of that, they change their careers. I mean, I know I started out in healthcare administration where I went to college for, but then I ended up in retail management and then restaurant at the same time. And honestly ended up in HR, and now I'm an HR consultant doing a lot of management training. So while some of them all kind of went together, a lot of them I had to start from scratch. And I was very, very, grateful for the leadership team that I fell under in this one company that was very open to the change. What are your thoughts on that, Genevieve? What can we do as leaders to help people who are saying, hey, I think I need a career change? We risk losing them, but there's so much more that we win in the end.
I agree, Wendy. I think as leaders, we have to ask as early on in the interview stage, intermittently, what's important to you? Why are you here? How can you contribute what your heart wants to feel fulfilled about here? What can you offer us that will take us to another level? And I don't think growing up, well, I know I was never asked that by my boss. I had bosses, and I like to say now we're growing leaders. And I think that that's a missing piece. Leaders don't usually, haven't, in my experience, asked that question of each person. And I think the days of just showing up to do a job, sitting at a conference table, listening to one person give the orders is gone. And I think that there is room for growth. And my number one speech these days, my presentations are how do you become a voice that moves the world? For a leader to do that, it means taking into consideration where everybody wants to contribute to help you to meet that vision, meet it as a team.
Yeah, and you kind of need to these days with the youngest generation. JC and I were sharing stats preparing for this podcast, and I'm just going to go ahead and share one right now. 95% of employees agree that culture is more important than money. And I could tell you right before I went live with this podcast, I was finishing an employee survey for a very, very large government organization in a different state. And that is what the employees were saying on that survey. Granted, they also were saying, hey, we're underpaid, but that's a different conversation. Many of them, the interesting thing is, this isn't the first year that we've done that survey that many of them were saying we're underpaid, but they're still there because they were saying we have a great culture. With that said, we also changed a lot of compensation the past couple of years too. So it's just so important to know that a positive culture leads to higher customer satisfaction levels and employee satisfaction levels. So very, very important. What I want to talk about in episode 3 of this 5-part series coming up next is the human connection. And I know you talk about this a lot, Genevieve. So everybody stay tuned, and thanks for joining us. We'll be right back.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.